As a kid, all a nigga wanna have was a Burberry scarf and $3 in my pocket. Instead I got beat with a switch, but I don't give a fuck, but it's on my body. Scars all up on me, but I run around from everybody. Life lesson learned, I better learn from this bitch, nobody. She pushed me around, she didn't give no motherfucks about it. She broke my heart 3 times, but I ain't getting...
And this goes into my next topic of why having a good head coach matters more than having a good quarterback. Now, it seems like in this day and age, people determine how good you're going to be based on who your quarterback is. If you don't have an elite quarterback, a lot of people feel you're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl. And that narrative is simply false. You see, having a good quarterback doesn't mean you're a Super Bowl contender. To win a Super Bowl, you have to have a good coach, which is why having a good head coach matters more than having a good quarterback. It's a reason why you can win the Super Bowl with an average quarterback, but you can't win a Super Bowl having a great quarterback and a bad head coach. You got to have a good head coach to win a Super Bowl. And let me give you guys an example. Name me 5 quarterbacks who you feel are top 10 quarterbacks. It doesn't matter the rankings. It doesn't matter what order you have them in. Just name 5 quarterbacks who you consider to be top 10 quarterbacks. And while you name the quarterback, name who their head coach is. I'm going to give you mine. So, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. Now, out of those 5 quarterbacks I named, all 5 of those quarterbacks are supposed to be top 10 quarterbacks. You know something that all 5 of those quarterbacks have in common? Oh, they have some of the best head coaches in the NFL. Okay? And it's only a few outliers out there who are considered to be top 10 quarterbacks who don't have great coaches. And those will probably be Matthew Stafford and Deshaun Watson. But that goes to my other point. You want to know why Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford don't have any Super Bowl rings? Because they don't have great coaches. You see, a lot of Houston Texans fans say, oh, we're going to make it to the playoffs every year because, Deshaun Watson is going to carry us. And listen, it's all cute and all to, coast to the regular season and get to the playoffs every single year. But you want to know why the Houston Texans always get bounced out in the divisional round? Because they don't have a great coaching staff. Only the teams in the playoffs that make it far are the teams that have the great coaching staffs. Like, it's easy to make it to the playoffs when you're playing in the AFC South in a weak division. Because, look, in a regular season for the Houston Texans, you're facing good teams that are well coached, you're facing the average teams, and you're facing poor teams that aren't really all that great coaching-wise, right? So, if you're Houston, it's easy to make it to the playoffs when you've been playing in a weak division for the last couple of seasons, right? But once you get to the playoffs, if you're a team that is strictly carried by how good your quarterback is, when you get to the playoffs, you're going to be facing some of not only just the best teams in the NFL, but you're going to be facing some of the best head coaches in the NFL. And then the further you get into the playoffs, the more you're going to have a head coach that's going to be able to exploit the weakness of their team by neutralizing your quarterback. Basically, having a great head coach, if you're just a team like Houston that is overly relying on great quarterback play, that's going to get exposed because then that team is going to game plan to stop that quarterback, and he's going to, since the quarterback is going to be neutralized, that's going to be able to show all of your weakness. Having a great quarterback in a regular season like Deshaun Watson is going to be able to hide your weaknesses. It's going to be able to hide the flaws that you have on both sides of the football to some degree, but particularly on the offensive side of the football. But once you get to the playoffs, those flaws get magnified because you get matched up against coaches that know how to neutralize quarterbacks like Deshaun Watson, that know how to, force the whole entire team to play together as a team. And that goes to show you why those teams like the Detroit Lions, like Matthew Stafford and Deshaun Watson, never make it far in the playoffs because they don't have great coaches. If you want to win in the playoffs and you want to win a Super Bowl, you got to have a great head coach. That's point blank, period. A lot of people always talk about elite quarterback this, elite quarterback that, but head coach matters more than having an elite quarterback. It's a reason why you can win a Super Bowl for an average quarterback. Peyton Manning, I find it ironic how Peyton Manning won the second Super Bowl of his career after the second worst season that he's ever had in his whole entire Hall of Fame career. In 2015, Peyton Manning was not the Peyton Manning that we saw throughout his whole entire career dominating the NFL. His body was breaking down. He could barely throw the football all that much down the field. But the reason why the Denver Broncos won that Super Bowl was because they were well coached. So you got to have a great head coach if you want to win a Super Bowl. Having a good quarterback and having an average or below average head coach doesn't win Super Bowls. Look at Aaron Rodgers with the Green Bay Packers. It was after 2010, Mike McCarthy went from a good head coach to an average head coach because he got too overly reliant on Aaron Rodgers. He got too overly reliant. They weren't giving him the pieces around him to be successful, and they ain't giving him a good defense. Mike McCarthy basically said, hey, Aaron, I'm going to give you the keys. I'm going to need you to carry me and carry this team to the playoffs and carry us to the Super Bowl once again. That's why Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers had that power struggle. They had that power struggle because Mike McCarthy gave Aaron Rodgers too much control because he got too overly reliant on Aaron Rodgers. And after Mike McCarthy did that, he got lazy. He didn't adapt his offense to the current state of the NFL. That's why a lot of people call his offense outdated, because he got lazy. He got too overly reliant on Aaron Rodgers. And we saw, Aaron Rodgers being able to carry Green Bay to the playoffs, but it's a reason why as far as Aaron Rodgers was able to get the Green Bay Packers to was the conference championship game. And that's why after 2010, the Green Bay Packers never reached the Super Bowl again, because Mike McCarthy became complacent and he regressed as an NFL head coach. You see, a lot of people, it's easy to get wrapped around the quarterbacks, but at the end of the day, you only win games in the NFL by how good of a coaching staff you have. You only win championships based on how good of a head coach you have. That's why Bill Belichick has more rings than any other head coach in the NFL coaching right now. He's a mastermind. He out-coaches everybody. He out-strategizes you. A lot of people get tied into the players and who's the more talented team and things like that. But ask yourself this, who is the more better coach team? You can make the argument to say that the best team doesn't necessarily win the Super Bowl all the time. Think about the last couple of teams that have won the Super Bowl. Can you really make the argument to say that the best team won the Super Bowl every single year? Think about that. Were the Kansas City Chiefs better than the San Francisco 49ers? I don't think so. They had the better offense, but all around, the 49ers were a better all-around team because they had more talent on defense, and their offense was pretty good as well. So all around, the 49ers were a better team than Kansas City because of their defense and how good they were on offense, right? But the reason why they lost is because Kyle Shanahan got out-coached by Andy Reid. And you can tell because, Kansas City was down 10 in the fourth quarter, and then they ended up winning the game coming back. That's coaching, and Kyle Shanahan kind of folded down the stretch. You see, that goes to show you of how coaching matters. You can go back to that Super Bowl when you had the Los Angeles Rams taking on the New England Patriots. What was the narrative in the game? The narrative in the game was that Sean McVay and the LA Rams, they had a better overall roster, and Sean McVay was this young, innovative offensive mind. And he was going to be able to come in there and beat the New England Patriots because they were old and, they were washed, right? But what happened? The New England Patriots end up holding one of the best offenses in the NFL that year that the Los Angeles Rams had, averaging over 30 points per game. And they went from 30 points per game to only averaging 3 points per game in that Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. That's coaching. The Rams were a better team heading into that game, and they still lost because of coaching. So at the end of the day, you notice the teams that only go far are the teams that are properly coached. Look at the San Francisco 49ers this past season. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't a top 10 quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo was okay, but he wasn't great. So that just goes to prove my point that you can win the Super Bowl with the average quarterback, but you can't win the Super Bowl with a bad head coach and a great quarterback. A great quarterback is going to have an elite or a good head coach if he wants to win a Super Bowl. That's been proven. You guys can't name me one quarterback that has just absolutely carried their team to the Super Bowl in this past 20 decades. It doesn't happen. Notice that every team that, goes to the Super Bowl, they have a great head coach. Or they have a head coach who is good at the moment. So, a lot of people just get so overly tied up into stats, fantasy football, and how talented a quarterback is, instead of looking at what goes into a quarterback's success. Notice that every quarterback that's successful has a good head coach the majority of the time. Deshaun Watson used to have a good head coach. Bill O'Brien, a lot of people forget that Bill O'Brien won a playoff game with Brock Osweiler, who was average. Bill O'Brien was a great head coach back in the day. I don't know what happened, or I can tell you what happened. He got overly reliant on Deshaun Watson. So bragging about, getting carried to the playoffs by your star quarterback doesn't mean anything. If anything, that's just an indication that you don't have a great team. If you need your quarterback to be Superman, that means you don't have a great coach. Simple. Because having a great coach, if you have a great coach, you don't need your quarterback to be Superman. You don't. So having a good head coach matters more than having a good quarterback. But you see a lot of these debate shows, and a lot of people, they make it all about the quarterback and things like that. Although the quarterback is one of the most important positions in the NFL, well, not even one of the most important position in the NFL, you don't necessarily have to have a great one to win a Super Bowl. And that's been proven time in and time out. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, but he had a great head coach. Tom Brady was a great quarterback, but he had a great head coach in Bill Belichick. So, having a good head coach matters more than having a good quarterback.